Hi guys, it's Laura of Fashion Illustration Tribe. I'm Laura Volpentesta. I'm the author of The Language of Fashion Design and the founder of Fashion Illustration Tribe, which is an online fashion school you can attend from anywhere. You can study model drawing, digital fashion illustration, design sketching, flats and line sheets, mood boards, fabric boards, illustration rendering, texture. I have small courses, and then I have my program, which is Freedom Fashion Program. It's like a semester-long course that takes you from the beginning of design drawing to illustrating and presenting your own first original collections, and then repeating that process for different categories such as evening wear, winter wear, outerwear, different seasons, so you can create a whole portfolio. And my joy is to see you see things in a new way, try things in a new way that enable you to express things that have only been living in your head. Get real skills that you can be proud of. For me, it's not about the credential. It's about knowing what you know, discovering what you discover, and using that to create the things that you want to create in the world. And I'm here to see what I know you can do and bring you there. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. So I've been teaching pattern making and draping, which is what we're going to talk about today, as well as illustration, portfolio, beginner model drawing, intermediate, design sketching, design, etc. Along with freelancing in the industry, having my own studio of custom garments and bridal, and a big love for African and Brazilian fashion, culture, music. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about pattern making because we have this coupon and I don't want you to miss this coupon because it's half off of the pattern making course. The pattern making course gives you lifetime access, and right now it's an open access course, which means you can access all the lessons at once. Not that you want to or need to. You're probably going to want to take one module a week or one module a month, but whether you go through every exercise or just watch, this course is going to change the way you see and experience clothes. You're going to have a deeper understanding. What is grain? What is the grain line? How are things finished and why? How to create pattern pieces and patterns from clothes you own. How to modify clothes, modify patterns, create patterns from scratch. It's all in there, and I'm there as your resource to ask questions. There's a private discussion area for you to share your pattern drafts, your specific questions. You can even to interact with each other and feel like you're developing a community, connections, and a family that's supportive in your growing knowledge of fashion design. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about supplies you can use for the course and to show you how you don't need everything. Even though I'm going to show you how we drape a sloper for bodice, sleeve, and skirt, you are also just going to watch and see. Before that, you don't have to drape it yourself. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to drape your own necessarily. Just watching it and listening and watching, asking your questions is going to still give you the vocabulary, visual vocabulary, spoken vocabulary, and concepts, fundamental concepts that you need to know if you want to be talking with people, working with a team, either people helping you or you helping people. You need to know this language, and it's so full of mysteries and delight and craft. There's so many specialized terms. It's just fabulous. So today I just want to show you some of the supplies, the minimal supplies you need. So like I said, you don't need a mannequin. You don't need yards of muslin. You don't need a zillion pins. But I'm going to show you some of the tools that we use in the class so you can see how you could start. Like I said, you could start just by watching, but you can also start the course with just a few things and just work on your desktop. I'm going to be working on a small area of my desk right now. You don't need to use full-size patterns right away to internalize these concepts. I'm going to show you how you can use very small quarter scale patterns that are so small that you can practice and learn everything right there, right in your lap, before you have to do it full size. You can work out ideas, find problems, digest concepts, and live and work with them without always having to use, tons of paper and have a big space set aside, etc. So when you sign up for my course, which the coupon I don't want you to miss is Just Do It is the code, and it's up for 24 hours. I blasted it out everywhere so people will know. It's usually $600. It's going to be only $300 for this lifetime access course if you use your code now. So even if you can't get to it right away, it's lifetime access. So if you get the course, you can dig into it anytime. That's one of the major reasons I created Fashion Illustration Tribe. Is I don't like to see women apologizing. Oh, sorry I'm late. I missed class. Oh, shoot. I know how your lives are. My life is like this too. Life happens. I'm here to serve you. Your courses should be available to you anytime to watch and rewatch and rewatch, okay? The quarter scale sloper set, we call these slopers. These are patterns with no seam allowance on them, okay? They're the foundations of pattern making. The quarter scale sloper set comes with your membership. You can print it out on cardstock, or you can print it out on paper and then trace it through to I used poster board here because you want to have something that's durable. As you can see, these are several years old and gotten tons of use. They're pretty beat up and yet not so beat up because the paper was strong. So I'm going to flip you around and show you some of the supplies so you can get a taste and get excited to start. I think what I'm going to do, since my last demonstration was about bodices, I think what I'm going to do this time is talk to you about skirts. We'll do something with skirts and just start to see how pattern making is magic. And hopefully when you watch this, you're going to say, oh, I get how that could apply to many, 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 many things. It's never just the thing I'm showing you. And I welcome your questions as well. So let's turn around. Oh, hang on. Flip. Yeah. See, I'm just using literally my simple desktop because whether you have a big sewing studio or not, hello, I want you to see how I can work in a small area. So I have a pencil case. One of the things you would like to have is, and I welcome your questions as well. Oh, wait, this is my friend. Hi, my pattern making student. Hi. So I was going to show how using having a book with graph paper is helpful. And as you know, Koi, we use, hello, Thelma. Okay, we have our quarter scale patterns. Today I was going to work with a skirt. And that's kind of a benefit for you, Koi, because we didn't do that in class yet. And we can kind of take a step into the future. Sorry about the angle of my camera. Maybe this is better. So I'm going to use my quarter scale front skirt sloper. I'm going to lay it down. Actually, Koi, if you have a specific question, let me know because I will address that. Hi, Thelma. Thanks for stopping by. Let me know if you have any specific questions. I'm using, you can use any kind of graph paper. You don't even need to use graph paper. Hi, Elena. I welcome any and all of your questions while we're doing this. The reason I'm using graph paper is because fabric, at its core, you need to realize fabric is made of vertical and horizontal threads, right? It's woven. So this is like fabric to me. I'm always thinking of this as the grain lines, the threads on a woven fabric. Could be knit as well. So what I'm going to do today, I'm kind of winging it here. You know what I'm going to do before I work on my graph paper? I'm just going to do a quick tracing of the skirt, and we're going to do something super cool. I'm going to take a fine marker. I'm using a fine marker because I want you to be able to see. It's fine, but I'm hoping it'll be dark and clear enough for you to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to trace my skirt. This represents half of a skirt pattern. Hi, hello Greece. I wish I was in Greece today. Hi, I'm in Connecticut today. This represents the center front of my pattern, which I can cut it on a folded piece and that will give me a whole skirt. Okay, so but for the example, I'm just gonna line it up on my center front on the edge of my paper because it will give me one last cut to make. And this is my waistline of my skirt. These are the darts that create the fitting of my skirt so that it actually stays up on my model and doesn't just fall right down off of her. But if you're new to looking at patterns, this measurement plus this measurement plus this measurement equals my waist measurement. Okay, so larger waist might give me smaller darts or a less curved side seam. And a smaller waist would give me perhaps a more curved side seam or bigger darts, right? This is how you can customize your patterns for different people. The reason I'm tracing right on the edge here is because this is my sloper. Sloper means that this pattern has no seam allowance on it. This represents, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Stitch, stitch, boom. Hello, I haven't seen you in so long. Okay, I'm gonna put a little marking here. This horizontal line represents a cross grain because it's squared from center front length grain, but it also represents my hip level. So this line is distant from the waist to the same amount that my model or client's hip is distant from her waist. And that can vary, as you know, for anyone. Your hip measure is your very biggest measure below the waist. And for some that may be quite high, for some that might be quite low, even lower than you think. Because as you know, in our hip area, the volume can be distributed. Some people have it on the sides. Some people have more of a hip measurement all in the back. Okay, it could be in a lot of different places depending on the person. Whenever we measure someone's hip level, we measure it parallel to the floor. And that's really, really important to know. Parallel to the floor. So you find the biggest measurement, but you want to make sure you're not measuring it slanted. And what I'm going to do today is just show you something really fun and simple. Actually, I'm still trying to decide. Would you rather see a skirt with a yoke in the waist, or would you rather see a dartless flared skirt? Tell me what you tell me a skirt you'd like to see. So in theory, this skirt fits someone. This one fits someone perfect. It's a boring, simple skirt that fits someone. And we are going to create a new design out of it, something more interesting. Does anyone have an idea they'd like me to work out? It's the length grain. This is my front skirt. And just to clarify, this is my center front line. Let's say we're going to be cutting it on the fold when we make the real skirt and maybe put like a side zipper in. So what I'm going to do, before I decide anything else, I'm going to cut this out. So this represents a skirt that I already know fits my client or fits me, or I've traced it from a simple skirt that I own and I know it's perfect, or I've drafted it from measurements and tried it on and corrected it. This is we're talking here about using a block or a sloper. Is this a pencil skirt? Yes. So some of the definitions here, I'm so glad you asked a question because that makes it all so easy. Is this a pencil skirt? Yes. It's fitted at the waist. And what happens is you can see very clearly, as a matter of fact, that from the hip, which is the biggest measurement on her lower body, from the hip down, is literally a single thread. So the side seam is squared down from the hip. Now, that's what I call a pencil skirt. But you know, we could taper it a little bit. Now, I'm not sure if Koi is still here because she has already watched this demonstration in class. No, she has not. Oh, never mind. Okay, sometimes I teach so many classes, I'll forget. Okay, hang on. This is a pencil skirt. And now that you said that, I was going to do something more complex, and I'm not going to. Thank you. I'm going to do something a little bit simpler. So here's my pencil skirt. Well, what if you didn't want your skirt? I would use transparent tape most of the time, but I'm just going to use this. What if I wanted this skirt? What do you think, Thelma? Should we make this skirt tapered, or should we make it A-line by adding a little flare to it? Or should we make it like really, not just A-line, but like flared? I'm going to ask you guys. We'll take a vote. So our options for right now, there are infinite options for this skirt. But today we're either going to taper it or make it just barely like an A-line, which if you don't know what an A-line is, it's more of a, okay, good. All right. So A-line skirt would just be adding such a little bit at the bottom so that from the hip down you get that little kick out. So the skirt has a slightly triangular silhouette. Flared. Ooh, flares win. Okay. I'm glad because this is exciting. This is really exciting. What we're going to do is we're slashing the skirt. Not in real life. We're slashing the pattern of the skirt. Okay. No clothes were harmed in the development of this video. Promise. Okay. Slashing the skirt. What is beautiful about this is if you have a pencil skirt and it has, let's say, an elastic waistband. All right. Let's say this whole skirt was just a rectangle. It would have to be if we wanted to pull it up on over our hips because the waist wouldn't fit over our hips if it didn't have elastic, right? So if this were just a big rectangle, you know, the hip is bigger than the waist. So you have excess up here. But once you cut out darts, you're bringing the garment closer into the body. And that's when you have to start. I'm looking for my sloper. Where did I put it? Oh, this is the back. Okay, here it is. So when you wear it, you know, the darts get closed and you get a skirt that has 3 dimensions. Actually, it looks so strange right now, but do you understand? So it gets from the wide to the narrow. If you had no darts and you just cut like this, ding, it would, all of the shaping would be on the side seam, but we actually need subtle shaping in the front to go with the contours of the body. So what I'm going to do though is the amazing thing is if I tried to smooth this fabric up the woman's body, I'd have some extra bits here if I'm doing a straight skirt. But for a flared skirt, you're able to smooth the waist and the extra fabric that's up here winds up in the hem. I'm sorry. This is something that in the class I'll show you on the mannequin, but when you see it on paper, it will make sense. Right now, you might be like, she's losing me. I knew this was going to be hard. It's not hard. Don't be scared. Just watch. Keep an open mind. So here's what we're going to do. I just put 2 pieces of tape here so that my panel is staying in place. And I'm going to number this. Let me use a color just to clarify something for you. I'm going to take my sloper and I'm going to break it into 3 pieces. Okay, here we go. I'm going to, this is the slash method of pattern making. There are other methods such as pivoting. Same, really, they're so much the same anyway. It's silly, but I'm going to try to cut to but not through that little point. Oops, I said that and then I cut through it. I wanted to just cut to it. Now watch what happens. You do not need an awl to do this, but I'm going to show you the awl just in case you don't own one. You could also do this with a thumbtack or none of the above. But you hold the tip of that dart closed and you slide. I'm kind of uncomfortable teaching this without giving you any of the background that I usually give on day one. I feel like it probably feels a little bit scarier right now because I might be moving so fast. But what I just did was I eliminated the dart in the top part of the skirt and transferred the fullness into the hem. And what happens is you're going to get a skirt that fits beautifully. Okay, thank you for the affirmation. I love getting feedback while we're teaching. Okay, so now what we would have is literally imagine all this turning green. All this turning green. Okay, imagine this is all becoming one piece of fabric. So now we have a flare in our skirt. Literally a flare. Like when she wears this triangle becomes a cone of fullness in my skirt, and the skirt still wants to come back down, right? The side seam's out here now, but gravity is going to bring it down, and what we're going to get is that ripple in the hem. It's going to be a big ripple in the hem, but zero at the waist. The waist is going to be totally smooth. Am I making sense? Okay, so now we have another dart, so why don't we close that dart too? And what we're going to get, this is very 70s, we're going to get a smooth waistline, which means we're going to have to put zippers or button up there. You have a smooth fitted waistline, but a full flared hemline, and it's going to work. So if you think about it, remember I told you this plus this equals your waist measurement? Well, this is now still exactly your original waist measurement. Nothing's changed. Yay! Hey, Koi, you're getting like a total preview. And this replay will go up later too. Thanks. If it was lightweight fabric, could you add horsehair in the hem? Absolutely. Even if it was heavy fabric, you could. I love it. I love the way you're thinking. While you're at it, you might want to think about whether you would fold and stitch your hem, whether you would face your hem with a facing, because this is going to be a shaped hemline, right? It's not a straight grain hemline, so you can't just fold it up and stitch it. Unless you do like, my favorite hemline for flared skirts is the baby hem, where you do a line of stitching and then you fold on that line of stitching and you stitch right next to the stitching, and then you trim super close with your scissors and you turn it one more time. It gives you a super fine hem, but which also has a little bit of body to it because of the layers of stitching and fabric. But what you need to think when you look at this now is that this skirt is not green, yellow, green, yellow, green. No, it's one piece of green fabric or whatever color fabric, right? And, what was I going to say? Oh, what we're going to also do is add a little flare to the side seam, because if you think about this logically, we're going to get a blended line coming up through here and up through here, but it's kind of strange that this side seam, well, it's not that strange. I was thinking of kicking it out a little bit. Let me see something. Yeah, I was thinking of adding more flare at the side too. I don't have to, but I'm going to. So check this out. I'm blending from like the hip. Now, the biggest thing I notice in my pattern making classes is students feeling very much like that there's a right or a wrong, an extreme right or a wrong to things. And I really argue with that. Okay, I'm doing a right angle here. The reason why I want to make sure there's a right angle here is so when I create my back skirt and my front skirt, and when they're stitched together, they're going to blend seamlessly because they're both right angles, rather than having a point anywhere, point going up or down. And now I'm going to just use my kois in my class. I never recommend using what do you call them, French curves. I really don't. I used them for years. They're bulky. They're never quite the curve you want. So one way you can make easy, perfect curves is with your curved ruler. This is a see-through ruler that is 1 inch by 9 inch. And then you could just, you know, mark it. I always find I need 3 arms to do that comfortably though. So the other way I work is I use the compass that's built into my wrist. Super easy. Thing is, I'm not going to try to draw that curve this way. This is not using the compass of my wrist. This is really hard. But if I go sideways and I find that make the curve work with my wrist, I can easily sketch in my hemline. And if you're super shy, sorry, this is a brand new pen, so it's kind of not flowing the ink yet. You could do it in pencil, of course, and feel more like secure. Okay. But now, this is my front skirt. 1 panel, 1 piece, completely fitted through the waist. And notice how the waistline on the sloper, you know, it looks straight. But once you close it up, it literally takes on this curve, which makes sense that your waistline is curved like that, doesn't it? It becomes an arc. And this will fit perfectly. And you can see how big and how frequent you will have flares. And the reason I added this flare here is if I just add 2 big flares in the front and then repeat for the back and get 2 big flares in the back, it's kind of funny to only have flares in the front and the back and then have a straight-ish side seam. So in this way, when I add this bit, think about it. If I do the same when I do the back skirt, I'm going to end up with a total flare, you know, like medium-sized flare. Because this is the front of it, and there's going to be a back to it. And I'll have like a little flare that shows up in my side seam as well. And the funny thing is, I still know that this skirt is the right length for this model. Or at least I know how long it is based on how long my block was, how long my sloper was. If this was knee length, I know that this is all knee length. But granted, you know, when you test something on the model, you can always find the hem by just measuring up parallel from the floor all around. Anyway, so what I will normally do now is I like to put a notch at the hemline because it just helps me put my things together. I'm so glad, and we didn't even do this in class yet, so you'll be able to come back again and again to this video, which is really cool. And I like how the different colors show up. Koi, I think you should be a pattern teacher because I could see the love in how you do it, and you made all those beautiful samples. Thank you for your feedback. Koi's in my live class, and honestly, all it takes is one student like you to really turn a class around and bring it to life. And I really feel that you've done that, so I just want to say thanks. She's in my Parsons class. So the last piece I'm going to show you today, there's more I can show you guys about this. I don't even want to like rush through it too quickly. But I wanted to show you how when you take a fresh piece of paper, you're able to, wait, let me grab pins. Oh, I love having you in my class. No, seriously, I've been teaching the pattern making. I mean, I taught it a zillion years ago, but I've only been teaching the class that you're in for like a few years. And your input and like your questions and your attitude has really like changed the tone of the class in a great way. Like seriously. I just love that. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just putting these pins in here to stabilize my paper. If you ever do that, I like pins better than paper. Pinning is uncomfortable at first, but you will get very comfortable over time. But putting pins into my paper helps things stabilize, but I want to make sure that these two sheets of paper are behaving like one. You don't, you know, if it ripples and pulls, it's not going to help you. So always keep that awareness. If you're pinning fabric to fabric, paper to fabric, paper to paper, that you want them to behave like one. Does that make sense? Okay, now I'm going to take a red pen and just show you how I'm going to create my pattern from this. If we have a little time at the end, I'll add a waistline facing because I do think that this skirt's going to want a facing anyway. So here's my front waistline. I'm doing it as a broken line just because it's easier for me to draw line segments than one long line. One long line can tend to be more wavy or bumpy or rippled. Okay. Notice, you know why this is upside down right now? Because I'm always moving my book to my paper, whether it's full size or mini. I'm always moving it to conform to the compass of my wrist. You get what I'm saying? My wrist does this naturally, easily. So I'm never going to force myself to draw something the uncomfortable way. I'll get a cramp and it will never look good. But if I just go with the flow, and that's a philosophy that's actually, you know, very deep for everything you do in fashion. You're going to have more longevity, more joy and beauty in your work when you work in a flow rather than a fight. Yeah? I could use a ruler for this part, but I feel comfortable not using a ruler. So now we've created a single pattern piece. And we know that there's a right angle here, which is great because that means my front skirt will blend nicely with my back skirt, which I will create following exactly the same rules I used here. But check this out. Okay, if I cut this pattern out, I'm gonna want to put a notch on center front so that when I fold the pattern out, I'll know where center front is. Center front is just like a super landmark to always have on your patterns. This is no longer a sloper. A sloper is a pattern that has no seam allowances on it. I'm definitely going to add seam allowances to this. The way I do add seam allowances is to take a fresh, I misplaced. I get so excited when I teach. You know this, Koi. So then I end up losing things all the time while I'm working. Just a second. Okay. I can't find my blue pen, so I will use green or something. I use different colors just for clarity. Okay, so I am going to add a seam allowance. I'm working quarter scale, so I'm going to go very, very mini. And I'm just going to, normally you want to use super fine lines so that you can be super precise. I'm using bigger lines right now. Hey, thank you. So do you. You know, sometimes I just think fashion schools can get like way too serious. And who says fashion has to be so miserable? Like, we came here because we love something beautiful and with a spirit of imagination and fun. Right? We got to keep the culture of fashion joyful and kind, because to me that's beauty. Okay, so I wouldn't usually use such a thick marker, especially for something tiny, but I'm doing this so that it's very visible for you. So I just added seam allowance to my waist, seam allowance to my side seam, and I'm going to trace through that hip level notch, because that will just help me sewing. When I'm sewing a very long seam, it's very helpful for me to know, oh my gosh, hi Leah, old friend, fashion mama. Hip level notch, and then I'm going to put a notch up here, which is actually just a seam allowance notch. It shows me how big my seam allowance is. And I'm going to put another notch at hem level. And that will help me when I'm sewing. You know, I'll pin these 3 points together before I start stitching, and then I might pin in between. But having these landmarks in place helps a lot, because any of you who have already sewn, you know how it gets when things start to slide. You want to have it pinned all the way, especially on a very long seam that has a curve in it. So my waistline, I am also going to put a seam allowance notch there. This way when I go to sew, I know where to put my needle down before I start stitching. But here's a funny thing, guys. Have we decided, group decision, how we're going to hem this skirt? Because if you don't do like a baby hem, which is a very fine hem with top stitching that's like 1/8 of an inch from the hem, if you want to have like a body, like tailored, like lined, you might want to face the hem with like a wide facing. But you would literally have to put a facing, because you can't really fold this up and stitch it. Because this hem is curved. Imagine turning up a curve, right? And then trying to fold it up. The curve is longer than the edge that's folded, and you get ripples. Does this make sense? You would have to put a gather stitch through the ripples and then hand stitch it up. So it will look good from the outside, but the inside of the skirt would have excess fabric in the hem. Am I making sense? So I'm thinking, yeah, hand finish. No, but that's great to know. So for example, even if I put a facing on here, I would have to I wouldn't have to. I would hand stitch it up so that it would have an invisible finish. Like I would maybe cut a facing that's 1 inch tall, and then I would hand stitch it up here. Or if you want to hand finish, you might roll the hem and stitch it by hand. So it's like the baby hem I talked about, but you would be doing it by hand. That would be beautiful. Because there's so many things to consider. Like, is this chiffon? Is this wool? Is this... And also, actually, if it was chiffon... Oops, my battery's going. I'm going to wrap up soon. There's a lot to consider. Hello, Rachel. Yay. Oh, my God. So, before I make any final decisions here, I want to make... Why don't we just make a facing for now? Okay? Just for kicks. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough paper here, so let's see. So this red line that you're looking at represents the hem. I'm just going to make a little mark there. This is your hemline. This will help you with vocabulary. Hemline. This is your side seam. This is your hip level. This is your waistline. You don't have to write those on the pattern, but you do need to like know them, right? Use those words. Hey, darling. Center front is on fold, so I just want to draw a grain line parallel to center front so that I know that's on the true grain. I have to go to my spinning class now. Hey, bye. Thanks for stopping by, dear. And I'll see you soon. And now you have like a preview of what we're doing next week. Have a great class. I need a spinning class. Flared skirt, cut 1 on fold, size 10, Bulp and Testa. Okay, there's my pattern markings. And then let's create the facing. So to create the facing, it's only take a minute. Does anyone want to decide how wide of a facing we should use? Like, should it be something really bold with like 5 layers of top stitching, or should it be something really subtle? So, you're so welcome. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you soon. And this the pattern making class is open too. If anyone's interested or knows someone who might be, just spread the word, because it's half off today with the coupon code Just Do It, and the link is in the bio. It's also linked on my most recent post. So if I was creating a facing for this shaped hemline, I would just trace the hem. I would do this probably with a ruler so it's a little bit nicer, whatever. Here's the side seam. And then what I'm going to do is decide how wide that facing gets to be. Hi, you're so welcome. Thank you. So then I'm going to work parallel to that. This is how I use my ruler to create curves. So now this is the piece. The straight grain of the piece is the same as the straight grain on the skirt, and it's a long skinny piece, but it would give me the ability to face that hem. I have to add seam allowance now. I'll use a different color, right? Green, we said, for my seam allowance. So little tiny seam allowance to my facing. And I'm gonna need a seam allowance on both sides because I'm attaching the facing to the skirt. A lot of these words don't make as much sense if you haven't been sewing yet, but it's okay. You always have to start somewhere, right? You've got to start somewhere. You can't know stuff before you know stuff. It's okay. It's exciting to be a beginner. It's scary, but you're in good hands and you're encouraged. This marker is like too thick for something like this, but okay. The green is going to show you the outlines of the pattern piece. And that's my facing. It's cut on fold. I always mark my fold with little arrows. I say cut 1 fabric. And then watch, I'll remove that pattern piece. And the only thing missing now, well, I don't have to remove the whole thing. I'll just remove a piece of it. Guys, you can catch the replay for the whole process as well. Hang on a second. Merhaba. What does that mean? Hello. Okay, so there's the actual hem of the skirt. Here's the facing pattern piece. And this red line gets stitched to this one because it's a very long curved line. I want to make sure that I have a notch at center front, and I'm going to put another notch in the middle of all this because notches really help me stay on track. I'm going to put a notch, and I'm going to put a notch right on below that. Hang on, watch. So when I'm putting these pieces together, I know exactly where things meet up. And that's what's missing, is that I never put a seam allowance on my skirt. So just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna let you guys go. Well, I'll also open for Q&A, so let me know if you have any questions. Okay, here we go. Right? Tiny seam allowance. And I made a marking for, here's the notch. Yep. So here's my pattern set. It's not complete because I have my front skirt. I have my front facing. What I also want to create is, of course, a back skirt, which will be all the same rules. And then I need to make sure that my front and back skirt side seams have exactly the same length because they will be stitched together, and that all their notches match up together. But what's missing here is a waistline facing. So, I mean, either it's going to have a waistband and a zipper, or it's going to have a facing. So it's got a cleaned finish up here. even though it has no darts, it's still, the fabric can't just be raw up here. It needs a finishing. So I'd love to get your comments about where you think, how you think I should finish it. But I'm gonna wrap up so no one gets overwhelmed. I'm gonna flip this around. Oh, no. That's so funny. I dropped you. Waistband. So that will be a next class because we want to make sure we describe exactly how to construct the waistband, and I think that's a great idea. We'll do a waistband with like a little underlap and then maybe like a button or hook and eye on the side seam. What do you think? Or should we put it in center front or center back? Let me know, because that will affect every sewing and finishing decision we make affects the way we make our pattern, right? So pattern making is on sale. It's going to be open all week, but the coupon code Just Do It for half off is just for 24 hours. So get on in there. I look forward to see you. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye. Let's see. Oh, what happened?